The sea was calm, and the sky was bright. It was the kind of day where people trusted that nothing strange would happen. A fishing boat rocked near the coast. A father pointed at a flock of birds to make his little kid laugh. On shore, a news van parked beside a busy street because a hero patrol was doing a public safety demo. People waved. Phones were already out. In Japan, heroes were normal. Danger was real, but it was also managed. Then the light changed. At first, it looked like a thin crack in the air, high above the water. It was not a cloud. It was not a plane. It was like someone had drawn a line in the sky with a sharp blade. The line widened, and the blue behind it bent in a way that made people's eyes hurt. The father on the boat stopped smiling. His kid stopped laughing. The birds scattered fast, like they had heard a sound humans could not hear. The crack became a tear. A shadow, huge and smooth, slid across the ocean like a silent whale under glass. For one short moment, a massive shape blocked the sun. People pointed up. Some screamed. But when they looked again, the shadow was gone, as if it had never been there. The tear still hung in the sky. Something fell out. It was not burning. It was not tumbling. It dropped like a stone that knew exactly where it wanted to land. The impact hit the shoreline with a blunt boom. Sand sprayed, water jumped. A wave slapped against the seawall and drenched the front row of tourists. A few people fell down. Others ran. A patrol hero named Shishido had been smiling for the cameras a second ago. Now his body moved before his thoughts caught up. He shoved the nearest civilians behind the news van. "Get back!" he shouted. "Move! Now!" His partner, a smaller hero with a hard helmet and a loudspeaker, hit the siren switch and tried to keep her voice steady. "Everyone, please evacuate. Do not crowd the area." The dust settled. A figure stood in the crater. He was tall, too tall to be human. Broad shoulders, thick arms, purple skin. A heavy, dark suit that looked like armor, but not like any support gear from this world. Gold lines ran across it with clean purpose. He looked like a king who had stepped into the wrong country and did not care. Around him, 4 more shapes rose from the sand. One was huge and heavy, like a walking wall. One moved with sharp grace, spear in hand. One had a long blade that caught the sun like a cold promise. The last one floated a little above the ground, hands behind his back, like he was already bored. The patrol heroes froze for half a breath. This was not a villain they recognized. There was no record, no known quirk, no mask with a brand name. The purple giant looked at the crowd, then at the heroes, then at the city beyond. His eyes did not dart. They measured. He spoke, and his voice carried like it was used to being heard. "How many live here?" he asked. Shishido blinked. "What?" The floating man smiled without warmth. "My lord, asks a simple question." The giant took one step forward. Sand crunched under his boots. "How many lives?" he repeated. "On this world?" The helmeted hero lifted her loudspeaker like a shield. "You are not allowed here. State your name and your quirk." The giant's mouth did not change much, but something in his eyes tightened, like patience being tested. "I do not have time," he said. "I need numbers." Shishido's instinct screamed at him to attack. If this was a villain, he could not let them get closer to the civilians. He lunged. His quirk made him fast and strong. His hands became heavy claws. He aimed for the giant's head. A clean strike meant to stun. The giant moved one hand up. It was almost lazy. Shishido's claws slammed into the giant's palm and stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. Like he had hit a steel door. Shishido felt his shoulder scream. The force came back into him, not the other way around. The giant looked at him as if Shishido was a child, trying to push a truck. "No, The giant said. It was calm. It was final. He pushed. Shishido flew backward through the air, not spinning, not torn apart, just thrown. He hit the sand, rolled, and skidded to a stop. His body hurt in places he did not know could hurt. His eyes went wide with a simple, terrifying thought. He did not even make the big man breathe harder. The huge wall-like alien stomped once, and the ground shook. Civilians screamed again and ran harder. The spearwoman took a single sweeping motion, and a thin line of bright energy cut the road in front of the crowd like a warning fence. It was not meant to kill. It was meant to control. The floating man raised one finger. A parked car lifted off the ground without a sound. The helmeted hero threw up her hands. A small barrier of hardened air formed around the closest civilians. Her quirk could block bullets for a moment. It could save lives in a rush. The car drifted, turned, and hovered above her barrier. Then it lowered very gently and pinned her barrier to the ground like a heavy lid. It did not crush anyone. It simply made her useless. The floating man leaned down a little, polite as poison. "Please," he said, "do not struggle. It wastes time." The purple giant walked past the fight like he was walking past street noise. He moved toward the news van. The cameraman inside tried to reverse, shaking. The van's tires squealed. The giant reached the van, placed his hand on the hood, and stopped it with the same quiet strength he had used on Shishido. He peered through the glass at the reporter, who had gone white. "Your device," he said. "The one that connects you?" The reporter swallowed. What?" The floating man sighed, as if explaining something basic. "He wants your network, your data, your population records." The reporter's hands trembled. He raised his phone like it was an offering. The giant took it with care. He turned it over, pressed the screen, and watched it light up. His thick fingers moved with strange skill, as if he had held similar tools 1,000 times. He frowned. Then, with a slow motion, he snapped the phone in half. Shishido pushed himself up, gasping. "Why?" The giant's eyes did not leave the city. "Because your system is small," he said, "but your world is not." He looked up at the tear in the sky. The air around it shivered, ready to close. He turned back to the heroes for the first time, like they were worth a full look. "You will tell your strongest," he said. "I will return for what I need." He nodded once to the floating man. The floating man spread his fingers. The car lifted off the barrier. The spearwoman swept her weapon, and the bright line vanished. The huge wall-like alien grabbed Shishido by the front of his costume, lifted him like he was nothing, and held him there for one heartbeat. Not to kill him, to make him understand. Then Shishido was dropped back onto the sand like a warning sign placed carefully. The tear in the sky widened again, and for a second, a deeper darkness showed behind it. The team stepped into it. The crack closed. The sky went back to normal. The sea was calm again, but the people on the shore did not feel calm anymore. Shishido stared at the empty air, chest heaving, and tried to make sense of one thing. The purple giant had not come to fight. He had come to count. By evening, every screen in Japan showed the crater. They played the same shaky video again and again. The purple giant catching Shishido's strike with one hand. The floating man lifting a car like it was a toy. The question that made no sense. How many live here? At UA High, alarms did not ring for drills. They rang for meetings. Izuku Midoriya stood outside a conference room with his notebook open, even though his hands would not stop shaking. He tried to write, but his pen kept slipping. The hallway felt too bright. Students whispered in clusters. Some tried to laugh like it was a rumor. Others looked like they wanted to throw up. Aizawa walked past them with his capture scarf hanging loose and his eyes half-lidded, but there was nothing sleepy about his face. He had the look he got before a raid, not before a class. "Midoriya," Aizawa said. Deku snapped upright. "Yes." "Inside," Aizawa said, "and keep quiet unless asked." Deku nodded fast and entered. The room was crowded, but controlled. Nezu sat at the head of the table, small and calm, with tea in front of him like this was a normal day. That calm, Deku knew, meant the problem was huge. Present Mike stood by a screen, unusually quiet. A few teachers lined the walls. On the other side were people Deku did not see often. Serious men and women in suits with government pins. The Hero Public Safety Commission. And at the back, sitting like a mountain forced into a chair, was Endeavor. His eyes burned even when he was not using his flames. The screen replayed the beach. Video paused on the frame where Shishido's claws hit the purple giant's palm. Again, Endeavor said. Present Mike hit play. Deku watched the hand catch. He watched Shishido's whole body recoil. He watched the purple giant's face. There was no anger, no excitement, just control. Nezu's voice was light. "Thank you, Hizashi. We've seen it enough to start." One of the commission members leaned forward. "Our databases show no quirk user matching this. No villain record. No foreign hero record. No support gear manufacturer. Nothing." Aizawa spoke flatly. "So he's either unknown or not from here." The commission member's mouth tightened, like he did not enjoy that idea. Nezu tapped a remote, and the screen changed. It showed a still image of the floating man lifting the car. Then lines and measurements appeared. "Let's treat this like a puzzle," Nezu said. "We can learn from what he chose to do." Deku's brain latched onto that. Chose. Not just what happened, what was planned. Nezu's paw pointed at the crater. "He landed here, not in the center of the city. That reduces immediate resistance." He pointed to the paused frame with the car. His companion used fine control. He did not crush anyone. He pinned them. He changed the image to the snapped phone. The large one took a device, examined it, then destroyed it. Deku raised his hand before he could stop himself. He didn't want that specific phone. He wanted the system behind it. Nezu's eyes sparkled. "Very good, Midoriya." Deku swallowed. "So he's looking for information." Endeavor's fist tightened on the armrest. "Information about what?" A new clip played, audio clearer. The purple giant's voice. "How many lives on this world?" The room went colder. A commission woman spoke, crisp and sharp. "If this is a threat of mass harm, we need authority to act first, and act hard." Aizawa's head tilted. "Hard how?" "Curfews, restricted zones, forced evacuations, stronger surveillance," the woman said. "The public will panic. If we control movement, we reduce casualties." Deku felt his stomach twist. People weren't numbers. They weren't pieces to move. All Might wasn't in the room. He did not belong in these meetings anymore. But Deku still heard his voice in his head. A hero's job is to save. Aizawa looked at the commission woman like she was a loud TV. "You can't control panic with force. You can only redirect it." Endeavor leaned forward. Flames flickered at his beard. "If the enemy returns, I will meet him." The commission man beside him nodded, as if that was the only answer. "We need a decisive victory. The symbol is gone. The number 1 must be seen winning." Deku's eyes flicked to Endeavor. He looked like he wanted that, not just for pride, for pressure, for the weight that sat on his shoulders like a burning coat. Nezu lifted one paw. "If you fight him alone, and you lose publicly, you will give the public the worst thing of all. Proof that heroes cannot protect them." Endeavor's jaw tightened. "Then I won't lose." Nezu did not argue. He just smiled politely. "That is not a plan. That is a wish." On the screen, Nezu brought up a map of Japan. Tiny dots marked hero stations, response times, evacuation routes. This enemy asked for population numbers, Nezu said. That means he thinks in totals, in outcomes, in large actions. Deku's fingers gripped his notebook. He thought of villains like Shigaraki, who wanted to destroy because of hate. This felt different. Aizawa spoke again. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't brag. He didn't demand money. He didn't demand control of the government. So why show up at all? Present Mike asked, voice lower than usual. Nezu clicked, showing a close-up of the purple giant's armor. Symbols. Lines. Clean design. Because he is not improvising, Nezu said. He is scouting. A commission member frowned. Scouting for an invasion? Nezu's smile stayed. Possibly. Deku's heart thumped. An invasion. From someone like that. Aizawa's eyes slid to the student's side of the room, where Deku sat. We don't send kids into this. Deku wanted to protest, but he knew Aizawa meant it. He meant protect. He meant don't waste lives. Nezu lifted his teacup and took a tiny sip. We will do what we always do. We learn, we prepare, and we protect civilians first. He set the cup down. Now, we need a name for our unknown. The commission man crossed his arms. We can't fight a nameless threat. Nezu's eyes narrowed slightly, still friendly. A name is for comfort. A plan is for survival. Hawks was not in the room, but his presence still mattered. A message pinged on one of the commission tablets. The woman in charge glanced at it, then looked up. Field intel, she said. Energy readings from the coastal tear. Not quirk-based, not tech we recognize. The readings match nothing in our archives. Aizawa's voice was flat. Not from here. Silence. Then Endeavor stood up. The chair scraped. When he returns, Endeavor said, I will stop him. Nezu watched him. With support. Endeavor's eyes burned. I don't need. You do, Nezu said, still soft. Because your job isn't to win. It's to protect everyone watching. Deku's throat felt tight. He wanted to speak. He wanted to say he would fight too. But he remembered the hand catching Shishido. He remembered how small that looked. Nezu turned to the group. We assume he returns. We assume he wants data. We assume he will test our strongest. We prepare evacuation plans for coastal cities. We monitor for the same sky tear. And we keep this from causing panic? The commission woman asked. Nezu's smile became almost sweet. We cannot stop fear. But we can give people something, better to do than fear. Like what? She asked. Trust, Nezu said. Aizawa snorted softly, like trust was hard work. Nezu nodded. It is. The meeting ended with orders. Patrol patterns changed. Emergency sirens were tested. Hospitals got new instructions. UA had quiet drills with no students told why. Deku left the room feeling like the air had thickened. Outside, Bakugo stood near a window, arms crossed, face twisted in anger. So that's it? Bakugo snapped when he saw Deku. We sit and wait? Deku tried to keep his voice steady. We prepare. Bakugo's teeth clenched. That thing caught a hero like it was nothing. I'm not letting it do that again. Deku looked away, seeing the paused video in his mind. Me neither. Bakugo leaned closer, eyes sharp. Then get stronger. Deku nodded, because he always did. But inside, another thought rose, cold and new. Strength might not be enough. Far from UA, in a silent place where old factories had been abandoned, a door that did not belong opened in the air. The purple giant stepped through like he was entering his own home. Behind him, the floating man drifted in, hands still neatly folded. The spear woman and the blade man moved like guards. The huge one lumbered in last and stood like a wall by the entrance. The space inside was dark, empty, and full of dust. But the air felt different. It hummed faintly from the tear that had brought them. The purple giant looked around, then looked at a stolen hero handbook that the floating man placed into his palm. The cover showed a smiling hero in bright colors, with bold words about safety and branding. The giant's face did not change much, but his eyes narrowed. "Titles," he said. The floating man tilted his head. "Yes, my lord." "Symbol of peace," the giant read from the book, voice low. "No." "1." He flipped a page. "They rank their saviors like soldiers." He flipped again. "And they name themselves like performers." The spearwoman did not smile. "It keeps the people calm." "It keeps them entertained," the giant said. The floating man smiled, pleased at the criticism. "A weak system with pretty paint." The giant looked at the page again. "A system can be weak and still be loved." He closed the book. He walked to a dusty table and placed the book down like it mattered. Then he looked toward the city lights in the distance. "Find their records," he said. "Find their totals. Find their patterns." The floating man's eyes gleamed. "And the strongest?" The giant's voice stayed calm. "We will test the strongest. We will learn how they move." He paused, then added, softer, almost like a private rule. "We will not waste effort." The blade man shifted. His weapon scraped the floor. "And if they resist?" The giant's eyes did not blink. "They will." He spoke the next words like a law. "Resistance is part of the process." 2 nights later, the sky tore open again. Not above the ocean this time. Above a secure research complex outside the city, surrounded by fences and bright lights. Sirens screamed before the tear even finished opening. Cameras swung up. Floodlights tried to stab the darkness. Inside the complex, a young security guard named Fumiko stared at the monitor and felt her blood drain. The air above the main courtyard split like paper. Shapes dropped down in a smooth line, not falling, arriving. Fumiko's hand shook on the alarm button even though it was already blaring. "Unknown hostile!" she shouted into her mic. "Unknown hostile courtyard!" her boss yelled back. "Lock everything! Lock!" A spear of bright energy cut through the outer gate like it was butter. The gate slumped and died. A huge alien slammed into the ground and made cracks spider across the concrete. The floating one drifted forward, calm as a teacher, and raised both hands. The security cameras froze. Every single screen turned to static. Fumiko's breath hitched. They killed the system." "No," the boss hissed. "They took it." The floating man's voice echoed down the hallways through speakers that should not have worked. "Do not run," he said pleasantly. "It will not help." Fumiko ran anyway. She sprinted down the corridor toward the data center. She had no quirk. She was just fast, because fear makes you fast. Behind the locked doors, servers hummed. The complex stored quirk research data, demographic mapping, emergency response plans, population distribution models, the kind of boring numbers people never cared about. But someone cared now. Fumiko swiped her badge. The door clicked. She rushed inside and slapped a hand on the backup drive case, trying to pull it free. The lights flickered. A shadow fell across her. She turned. The blade man stood in the doorway, quiet, face unreadable, eyes sharp. Fumiko froze, holding the drive like a child holding a toy in front of a monster. He did not speak. He just raised his weapon. Fumiko squeezed her eyes shut. A scarf snapped through the doorway like a black ribbon. It wrapped around the blade man's wrist and yanked. The blade man's arm moved, but his body barely shifted. Still, the weapon's arc changed. The blade struck the doorframe instead of Fumiko. Sparks flew. Shota Aizawa stepped into the room like a shadow with tired eyes. His gaze locked onto the blade man's face. Fumiko did not know what erasure looked like. She only felt the pressure change, like the room went from storm to still water. The blade man's posture adjusted by a hair. His confidence did not vanish, but his something else did. Aizawa spoke without volume, like he did not need it. Back away. The blade man smiled, slow and wrong. Interesting. Aizawa's jaw tightened. This was not a quirk user in the normal sense. The man's strength and speed were still there. The danger was still there. But Aizawa had bought a moment. Go! Aizawa snapped at Fumiko. Fumiko stumbled backward, clutching the drive, eyes wide. Who are you? Aizawa did not look away from the blade man. A teacher. Then the wall exploded. Concrete chunks blasted into the data center like cannonballs. Fumiko screamed and ducked. Dust swallowed the room. The huge alien had punched through the building. Cull Obsidian stepped in, shoulders scraping the doorway that used to be a wall. He saw Aizawa and laughed like a bulldozer learning how to laugh. Aizawa's eyes flicked to the giant brute, then back to the blade man, still holding a razor. He could not look at both. The blade man's smile widened. He understood the rule now. Cull swung. Aizawa snapped his scarf to catch the huge arm, but it was like trying to stop a truck with a rope. His feet slid across the floor. The scarf burned in his hands. Aizawa released, rolled, and used the movement to shove Fumiko farther behind a server rack. Stay down, he barked. Cull's fist smashed into the server rack and tore it in half. Sparks sprayed. The room filled with the smell of burning plastic. Aizawa's eyes widened for a split second. Not fear for himself. Fear for what was in the room. They weren't here to kill him. They were here to erase the world's safety net. Aizawa clicked his comm. They're inside the data center. It's not a normal raid. They want the servers. Static answered him. Of course. The floating one had taken the system. Aizawa's teeth clenched. Great. Outside, the courtyard turned into a battlefield. Endeavor arrived like a comet. Flames roared around him as he landed hard enough to crack concrete. Civilians were not supposed to be here at night, but some workers were still in the buildings. Security teams ran and tried to guide them to bunkers. The air was full of screaming alarms and burning light. Endeavor's eyes locked onto the spearwoman first. She did not flinch. She rushed him. Her bold spear thrust was fast and straight. Endeavor twisted, flames snapping out like a whip. The air shimmered with heat. The spear cut through flame like it was fog. Endeavor realized this was not a quirk fight. It was a skill fight with power behind it. He blasted a wall of fire. She slid under it and came up with another thrust. Endeavor caught the spear with a flame-wrapped hand, using heat and grip at the same time. The metal hissed. The spear did not melt. She smiled, thin. Good, Endeavor snarled. Shut up. He slammed his other hand down, sending a burst of flame into the ground. The explosion threw her back. He turned, scanning. Above, hawks sliced through the air, feathers spreading like a net. He wasn't smiling. His eyes were focused and sharp. He saw the floating man drifting near the main building, hands raised, calm as ever. Hawks dove and sent feather blades in a tight, spinning line. The floating man did not dodge. A barrier of invisible pressure formed in front of him, and the feathers stopped mid-air, trembling. The floating man looked up at Hawks and gave him a friendly nod, like greeting a coworker. You are fast, he said, but you are trapped by your kindness. Hawks's face tightened. He yanked the feathers back and redirected them toward the courtyard, where workers were running. Not to cut them, to guide them, like a moving fence. Hawks shouted, "Bunker route! Follow the red line!" He was fighting a war and running rescue at the same time. The floating man watched, amused. See? Predictable. Then a new shadow fell over the courtyard. Endeavor felt it before he saw it. A pressure in the air, like the world braced itself. He turned. The purple giant stood on the roof of the main building, calm, hands behind his back, looking down at the fight like it was a chart. Endeavor's flames surged higher without him deciding to do it. The giant stepped off the roof and dropped. He landed in the courtyard with a controlled thud. Not a crater, just a statement. Endeavor took one step forward. You. The giant's eyes moved over Endeavor's flames, then over Hawks in the air, then over the burning edge of the building. "Number 1, the giant said. Endeavor's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" The giant did not answer that. Instead, he asked again, as if the only thing that mattered. "How many live here?" he said. Endeavor's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. "You're not getting anything." The giant tilted his head slightly. "You believe you can stop me?" Endeavor snapped. "I don't believe. I do." He attacked. A full blast of fire, not a warning. A focused beam meant to burn through steel. The beam hit the giant's chest. For a moment, the air exploded with heat. The courtyard lit up like a furnace. The camera drones overhead backed away on automatic, their sensors screaming. Then the flames cleared. The giant stood in the same place. His armor was darkened. A few glowing lines cooled. His body posture had not changed. He looked at Endeavor like Endeavor had just proven a point. "Strong," the giant said. Endeavor's eyes widened before he could hide it. The giant moved. He did not sprint. He stepped. But the space between them vanished. Endeavor threw an elbow and a burst of flame at the same time. The giant caught the elbow. His other hand grabbed Endeavor's shoulder. Endeavor felt a grip like a clamp. The giant turned his body and threw Endeavor across the courtyard. Endeavor smashed through a concrete barrier and skidded. He rolled, flames bursting to slow his slide. He came up on one knee, breathing hard. He had been thrown like Shishido. Endeavor's pride roared. He launched again, faster, flames pushing him like a jet. This time, he didn't aim for a straight burn. He aimed to control the ground, to cut off movement, to force the giant into a corner of heat. The giant stepped through it. His boots hit fire and did not care. Endeavor's eyes darted. He needed help, not because he wanted it, because the public could not watch him fail. Hawks shouted from above, "Endeavor! Don't lock in! He's baiting you!" Endeavor heard it, but his anger was louder. He raised his hands and unleashed a wide blast that turned the courtyard into a roaring orange wave. Workers in the distance screamed as the heat hit them even behind walls. Sprinklers burst on the roofs. Metal railings bent. The giant raised one arm. The wave broke against him. Not stopped, not canceled, but it spread and rolled around him like a river forced around a rock. Endeavor stared. "What are you?" The giant lowered his arm. His eyes were steady. "A necessary correction," he said. That sentence hit Endeavor harder than the throw. Not just a villain, not a thief. A man who thought he was right. Endeavor attacked again anyway. This time, the giant did not just throw him. He met Endeavor's charge with a short, brutal strike to the ribs. Endeavor's breath left his lungs. His flames flickered for half a second. The giant followed with a palm to Endeavor's chest, not meant to crush, but meant to stop. Endeavor slammed backward into the ground, cracking it. His body tried to rise on instinct. His arms trembled. The giant stepped closer. Hawks dove, feathers flashing toward the giant's eyes. The feathers stopped, pinned in midair. The floating man had raised one hand from near the building, still calm, still precise. "Please," the floating man called out. "We are working." Endeavor coughed and forced himself to stand. Flames flared again, weaker but stubborn. The purple giant looked past Endeavor and toward the main building, the data center. He could hear the battle inside. He could sense the resistance. His focus tightened. Endeavor saw the shift and realized, with a sick drop in his stomach, that he had been a distraction. Endeavor roared and threw himself in the giant's path. The giant stopped and looked at him. "You are brave," the giant said, "and you are trapped by the story your world tells about you." Endeavor's eyes burned. "I don't care about stories." The giant's eyes slid to the cameras in the sky. "Yes," he said, "you do." Endeavor's face twisted, and for a flash, his rage wasn't just anger. It was fear of being seen failing. Fear of letting people down again, in a new way. The giant moved his hand, a clean chop to Endeavor's shoulder. Endeavor's arm went numb. He stumbled. The giant did not finish him. He simply stepped around him and walked toward the building. Endeavor tried to follow, teeth clenched, but his body lagged. Inside the data center, Aizawa's eyes burned from holding a razor too long. Cull obsidian kept smashing through the room, tearing servers, ripping cables. The blade man moved like a surgeon, cutting locks, opening cases, grabbing drives. Aizawa snapped his scarf and yanked a drive out of the blade man's hand. The blade man's smile vanished. He lunged. Aizawa dodged, barely, and the blade cut a server in half instead. Sparks sprayed. Fumiko crawled through broken wires, trying to reach the backup case she had dropped. Aizawa saw her and felt anger spike. Not at her, at himself. A teacher shouldn't let a civilian be here. But reality didn't ask permission. Aizawa kicked a rolling chair toward Cool's legs. It did nothing. Cole stomped it flat. Then the lights changed. Not flicker. Not spark. They dimmed, like the building itself was holding its breath. Aizawa felt it in his bones. He turned. The purple giant stepped into the doorway, filling it. Cole straightened like a guard. The blade man lowered his weapon, respectful. Aizawa's eyes locked onto the giant's face. The giant looked back at him, calm, curious. "You," the giant said. Aizawa did not answer. His eyes stayed open wide, unblinking, holding a razor. The giant smiled faintly. "You remove gifts." Aizawa's voice was rough. "I remove threats." The giant stepped forward. Aizawa's mind raced. If this thing had a quirk, erasure might matter. If not, it might be worthless. But he could not stop now. Not while Fumiko was behind him. The giant walked closer, slow enough to be insulting. Aizawa snapped his scarf and aimed for the giant's neck, trying to bind and pull him off balance. The scarf wrapped. Aizawa pulled with all his strength. The giant did not move. Aizawa's arms shook, his feet slid, his face tightened. The giant reached up, grabbed the scarf, and tugged once. Aizawa flew forward. He tried to twist midair to avoid a direct hit. The giant caught him by the shoulder and lowered him to the ground, like placing down a heavy bag. Not gentle, not cruel, controlled. Aizawa hit the floor on one knee. His eyes still tried to stay open. The giant leaned in slightly. "Your strength," he said, "is rare." Aizawa spat. "Not rare enough." The giant's eyes flicked toward the scattered drives and broken servers. "You protect numbers, like they are people." Aizawa's voice was tight. "Because numbers are people." The giant paused. Something almost like respect touched his face. Then it was gone. He straightened and reached for a sealed case on the far wall, marked with high-level clearance. The blade man stepped aside, ready to open it. Aizawa forced himself up, trembling. "No!" He lunged again, scarf whipping. Cole swung his arm like a door slamming. Aizawa dodged, but the gust of force from the swing cracked the floor near him. Dust hit his eyes. Fumiko screamed as debris fell near her. Aizawa's focus wavered for a blink. The giant's hand touched the sealed case. It did not open. The giant looked at it, then at the lock. He tightened his fingers. Metal bent. The lock snapped. The case opened like a toy box. Inside were data drives, protected and labeled. Quirk factor mapping. Distribution models. A summary file with a title in clean print. Population and quirk demographics. National scale. The giant lifted the drives and held them like they were treasure. Aizawa's heart sank. Then, to Aizawa's shock, the giant did not pocket all of them. He selected only a few. He read the labels. He chose with care. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. You came for specific things. The giant nodded once. Yes. Aizawa's voice went colder. Why? The giant looked at him, and for the first time, his calm felt like a blade. Because your world is unstable, he said. You pretend it is safe because you wear bright colors. Aizawa's jaw clenched. The giant turned to leave. Aizawa stepped forward, forcing his body to move even when it screamed. Name, Aizawa demanded. Tell us your name. The giant paused at the doorway. He did not look back right away. When he did, his eyes were steady. A name is not useful, he said. Then he added, almost like a gift. Not for Aizawa, but for the idea of the future. You may call me Titan. And he walked out. Outside, Endeavor staggered after him, flames flaring again, anger and shame mixing in his throat. Hawks dropped lower, eyes wide. He had seen Endeavor get hit before. He had never seen Endeavor get handled like this. The purple giant stepped into the courtyard, holding the drives. He looked up at the cameras again, not to perform, to make sure the message spread. This world will be measured, he said, and it will be corrected. Endeavor yelled, voice cracking with heat. You don't get to decide that. The giant looked at him like Endeavor was shouting at the ocean. I already did, he said. Hawks launched feathers again, not at the giant, but at the drives. He tried to snatch them in midair. The floating man's eyes flashed. The feathers froze, pinned. Hawks gritted his teeth. Of course. The spearwoman stepped between Hawks and the giant, ready to strike. Endeavor lunged one last time, flames roaring, pushing past pain. The giant turned and met him, one hand to the chest, one simple push. Endeavor slid backward across the concrete and fell to one knee again, breath choking. The tear opened above them, dark and ready. The giant stepped under it. He looked down at Endeavor and Hawks, and the arriving police, and the distant workers crying behind walls. You will try again, he said. You will fail again. His voice stayed calm. And then, he finished, you will ask for my answer. The floating man drifted backward into the tear, smiling. The others followed, disciplined. The tear closed. The alarms kept screaming into empty air. Endeavor stayed on one knee, fists shaking, flames flickering low. Hawks landed beside him, breathing hard, eyes still sharp. They weren't here to win a fight, Hawks said quietly. They were here to take pieces. Endeavor's teeth clenched. Pieces for what? Aizawa stumbled out of the building, dust on his hair, eyes red from strain. He looked at the cratered courtyard, the broken gate, the burning walls, and the empty sky. They're starting something, Aizawa said, voice flat. And we just saw the first step. In the distance, sirens spread across the city like a warning wave, and in the middle of it all, one question kept echoing, louder now, because everyone understood what it meant. How many live here? Emergency special report. The unknown invader has struck again. Officials say critical research data was taken. The top hero, Endeavor, was injured during the response. The anchor's voice kept playing on screens in shops, trains, and living rooms. People watched the same clips until the clips stopped feeling real. A purple giant stepping through a tear in the sky. A car floating like it weighed nothing. Endeavor sliding across the ground on one knee. Flames shaking like he was fighting the wind. In a small apartment, a mother muted the TV and hugged her son tighter than normal. In a crowded cafe, two office workers argued about whether heroes were lying to them. On social media, people gave the invader 100 names. Most of the names were jokes. None of the jokes were funny. At UA, the gates stayed shut longer. The patrol drones flew lower. Teachers stood closer to students even when they tried to act normal. The training fields were open, but the mood was different. Izuku Midoriya felt it like a weight on his chest. He tried to focus on class. He tried to take notes. But every time someone's phone buzzed with a new alert, his stomach tightened. In the hallway, a first year from another class whispered, "That thing asked how many people live here, like he's picking a number." "Like he's picking who dies," another student whispered back. Deku kept walking, pretending he did not hear. But his mind would not let it go. How many live here? It sounded like a question from someone who planned to change the answer. In a private hospital room, Enji, Todoroki stared at the ceiling until his eyes burned. The doctor had told him to rest. The commission had told him to stay quiet. His agency staff had told him to let them handle the calls. Endeavor hated every word of it. His shoulder ached where the giant's strike had hit. His ribs hurt when he breathed too deep. His pride hurt every second. A screen on the wall played the footage again, even though he had told the nurse to turn it off. Someone had turned it on anyway. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it was a reminder. Endeavor watched himself charge. He watched himself burn. He watched himself get pushed aside, not beaten in a long fight. Moved, like a door being opened. His fingers curled against the blanket. He had fought Nomu that could smash buildings. He had fought villains who did not fear fire. He had fought the world's doubts every day since he became number one. But that giant had looked at him and seen something else. A role. A story. Endeavor's teeth ground together. "I am not a story," he growled into the empty room. The door opened. A woman in a sharp suit stepped in without knocking. Hero Public Safety Commission. Her eyes went to the bandage on his shoulder, then back to his face. "Enji Todoroki," she said, voice professional. "We need you for a statement." Endeavor sat up, pain flashing across his ribs. "Now?" "The public is scared," she said. "They need to hear certainty." Endeavor's laugh was short and ugly. "Certainty." "You are the top hero," she replied. "You must sound like it." Endeavor stared at her. "And if I lie?" "We don't call it a lie," she said. "We call it stability." Endeavor's flames flickered low at his beard. That thing didn't care about stability. It cared about numbers. The woman's eyes narrowed. "Then we must care about control." Endeavor looked away, jaw tight. He could feel the trap closing. If he refused, the commission would paint him as weak. If he agreed, he would become their mouthpiece. He had lived his whole life trying to control the story around him. Now, the story was trying to control him. "Fine," Endeavor said at last, voice rough. "I'll talk." The woman nodded once, satisfied. "Good. And Enji?" Endeavor's eyes shifted back to her, her voice lowered. "Next time, you do not engage alone. We will coordinate. We cannot afford more footage like that." Endeavor's chest tightened, not from pain. "You can't afford it," he said. "I can." The woman did not blink. "The world can't." Then she left. Endeavor stared at the ceiling again. He was used to being feared. He was not used to being watched like a failing wall. Shota Aizawa sat in a dim meeting room at UA with a cold pack pressed to his eyes. He had held erasure too long. His eyes still felt like sand was inside them. Nezu sat across from him, paws folded, tea steaming like this was a calm morning. Around them, pro-heroes, and commission reps filled every chair. Aizawa listened more than he spoke. He watched faces. Fear made some people loud. Fear made others hungry. A commission man tapped a pen against a folder. We need emergency authority, curfews, restricted travel, full data access from hospitals, schools, and hero agencies. Aizawa's head tilted. You want to centralize everything? Yes, the man said, like it was obvious. The invader is targeting information, so we lock information down. Nezu's eyes gleamed politely. And if the invader enjoys locked doors? The man frowned. We build stronger doors. Aizawa spoke flatly. He bent a secure lock like a toy. Silence followed that. Nobody liked hearing it out loud. A younger commission officer snapped. Then we lure him, put him where we choose. A stadium, an empty zone, we hit him with everything. Aizawa's voice stayed calm. He chooses where he lands. He isn't running on our schedule. Another hero, older and tired, muttered. And he didn't even kill anyone there, not on purpose. That's the problem, the younger officer said. He held back. That means he can do worse. Aizawa's mind went back to the data center. The purple giant had placed him down like a piece on a board, not because he was kind, because he was efficient. Nezu set his teacup down with a soft click. We have a name at least. The teacher here heard it. Eyes turned to Aizawa. Aizawa exhaled. He said we could call him Titan. A low murmur rippled through the room. Titan, someone repeated, like tasting the word. That's not a name, another said. That's a title. Nezu's smile was small. It is a clue. He speaks like a ruler. He fights like a soldier. He plans like a machine. The pro-heroes shifted, uneasy. Aizawa looked at the commission reps. He's mapping us. A commission woman nodded sharply. Then we map him. Hawks leaned against the wall, near the back, hands in his pockets, eyes half-lidded like he was relaxed. But Aizawa recognized the look. Hawks was listening to every word, storing every angle. Hawks spoke up, voice light but serious. I've been tracing where he hits and what he takes. It's never cash, never hostages, always systems. The commission man lifted his chin. Explain. Hawks shrugged. He hit a research complex. He took quirk population data. That's not random, that's planning. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. What does he plan to do with it? Hawks didn't answer right away. He looked at Nezu. Nezu's voice was gentle. We should consider the simplest possibility. The room waited. Nezu tapped a paw on a map. He is calculating. The word made everyone tense. Aizawa felt his stomach twist. Because if the enemy was calculating, then Hero Society's usual answers, punch harder, scream louder, would not work. The commission woman leaned forward. If he is calculating lives, we must reduce his options. Control movement, control information. Nezu's smile stayed, but his eyes sharpened. And if you treat your own people like pieces, you may become what you fear. The woman's jaw tightened. With respect, principle, philosophy doesn't stop invasions. Nezu's voice stayed polite. No, but it may stop you from becoming a different kind of disaster. Aizawa watched the debate spiral, control versus trust, fear versus hope. And in the middle, children training to be heroes, while the world tried to turn them into soldiers. Aizawa spoke once, quiet but firm. We protect students. We protect civilians. We don't turn this place into a prison just because we're scared. The commission man stared at him. And if your trust gets people killed? Aizawa stared back. And if your control does? No one answered. Nezu broke the tension by setting down a file. We will do both, in the right order. First, protection. Second, information. Third, response. Hawks pushed off the wall. I can get more information. The commission woman's eyes narrowed. How? Hawks smiled slightly. By flying where people don't want me to fly. Aizawa understood. Hawks was going hunting for patterns, for leaks, for anyone who might already be trying to talk to Titan. Because in a world full of villains, someone always tried to sell chaos. In an underground space that smelled like old metal, Titan stood over a table of stolen drives. Ebony Maw hovered beside him like a shadow that enjoyed speaking. Cull Obsidian stood guard near the entrance, breathing slow and heavy. Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive waited with weapons ready, silent. Titan's eyes moved across lines of data translated into clean charts by Maw's work. Population clusters, quirk distribution, emergency response times, hero agency locations, the hero ranking system. Titan's mouth tightened slightly as he read it. So much effort, he said, voice calm, spent on appearance. Maw's smile was thin. It is a world built on symbols. Titan tapped a file. Symbols become lies when they replace truth. He opened another set of records. Historical incidents, major villain attacks, disaster zones. A pattern emerged. Titan saw it quickly, like he was born to see patterns. This world produced power at random. Some children were born with harmless tricks. Others were born with weapons in their bodies. The system tried to make rules around it, but rules bent under fear. Titan's gaze paused on a section about a past war between a villain and a hero. One name appeared again and again. All Might. Titan scrolled further. Another name. All for One. Titan's eyes narrowed. A thief, he said. Maw leaned closer, pleased. A man who steals powers. Titan's finger stopped on a line describing a transfer of power from one person to another. One for all. Titan went still for a moment, shocked, interested. A power that moves, he said softly. Not born, given. Maw's voice almost purred. A gift, like an heirloom. Titan looked up, eyes sharp. And their society still depends on one symbol. Maw nodded. They built peace on a single man. Titan stared at the charts again. A world held together by stories. A world where power could be stolen, traded, passed down. He saw instability. He saw conflict. He saw suffering that repeated in cycles. He also saw something else. Hope. Not the kind he respected, but the kind that made people fight even when fighting was foolish. Titan's jaw tightened. This world is loud, he said. But it is not strong. Maw smiled. Then it will be corrected. Titan did not smile back. It will be measured. He turned to Corvus Glaive. Find the thief. Corvus's eyes gleamed. The one called All for One. Titan nodded once. If he can take power, he can be useful. Or he can be removed. Huko turned to Proxima Midnight. Find the moving gift. Proxima tilted her head. One for all. Titan's eyes sharpened. Find who carries it now. Maw clasped his hands, delighted. And when we find them, Titan's voice stayed calm, but it weighed more. Then we stop wasting time on doors and records. He looked at the hero handbook again, the bright cover in the dim room. Then, he said, we take the keys. Hawks flew low over the city at night, wings tucked tight to avoid radar and cameras. He wasn't supposed to be here, not without permission. But he had learned long ago that permission was slow and disasters were fast. He landed on a rooftop near a black market strip where illegal support gear and quirk drugs sometimes moved. The place looked normal from the street. That was the point. Hawks listened. He used his feathers like tiny ears, slipping them through vents, under doors, behind walls. Voices carried. That alien thing, someone said, nervous. It didn't even kill Endeavor. That's scary. Means he's picky, another voice replied. Means he's not here to rob. He's here to build. Hawks's eyes narrowed. Then a different phrase hit him and his stomach tightened. A guy in the shadows asked for a meeting, the voice said. Said he wants to talk to the invader, like he thinks he can bargain. Hawks's pulse spiked. Who? He whispered to himself. The speaker laughed, low. Who do you think? The boss, the one who collects quirks like toys. Hawks felt cold. All for one. Hawks didn't know how the contact would happen. He didn't know what tech could reach Titan. But he knew All for One didn't throw lines into the dark unless he believed something would bite. Hawks took off again, rising into the night, feathers slicing air. This is getting worse, he muttered. Because if villains and invaders started talking, heroes would be fighting 2 wars at once. Deku sat in a quiet training room, punching the air slowly, controlled, trying to keep his breathing steady. He did not want to break his bones. Not now. Not when the world might need him tomorrow. He thought of Titan catching Shishido like nothing. He thought of Endeavor being pushed aside. He thought of Aizawa, exhausted, eyes red, still standing. Deku's fists trembled. He stopped. The door behind him opened. All Might stepped in, wearing his thin form like a heavy coat. His eyes were tired, but kind. Deku turned fast. All Might! All Might raised a hand gently. Young Midoriya. Deku swallowed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to train alone. I can't stop thinking. All Might nodded slowly. Neither can I. He stepped closer, careful. I heard what the invader asked. Deku's voice came out small. How many live here? All Might's jaw tightened. That is not a question a normal villain asks. Deku stared at his own hands. He feels different, like he's not angry, like he's calm. All Might lowered himself onto a bench, moving like an older man now, because he was. The calm ones can be the most dangerous. They don't act on impulse, they act on belief. Deku looked up. Belief in what? All Might's eyes went distant. Sometimes people believe that hurting others is a kind of help. They call it necessary. They call it balance. Deku's chest tightened. That's wrong. All Might nodded. Yes, but the world does not become safe just because you say, wrong. You must show it. Deku's hands clenched. How? He's so strong. All Might looked at him, and his voice softened. Strength is not only muscles, it is also what you refuse to become. Deku blinked hard. I don't want to be scared. All Might gave a small, sad smile. Being scared is human. Being a hero is choosing to move anyway. Deku's breath shook. What if I'm not enough? All Might's eyes sharpened, with a quiet fire. Then you learn to become more, not alone, with people. That is what this world does best. Deku nodded slowly, but the fear didn't vanish. It just changed shape. Because the fear wasn't only about losing, it was about being chosen. Titan was looking for keys, and Deku didn't know if he was one of them. 2 days later, Endeavor stood in front of cameras with a hard smile that did not reach his eyes. He spoke about readiness, about plans, about strength, about heroes standing united. He did not mention that the enemy had asked for population numbers like they were groceries. He did not mention how it felt to be shoved aside. Behind the cameras, the commission woman watched, satisfied. On a rooftop across town, Hawks watched too, not satisfied at all. Because while Endeavor spoke, Hawks's feathers were still listening to the city's quiet corners. And Hawks had found something else. A convoy schedule, a prison transfer, a route that moved high value, prisoners between secure sites. It wasn't public. It shouldn't have leaked. But leaks happened when people were scared, greedy, or both. Hawks's eyes narrowed. "He's going to hit where we move pieces," he murmured. And if Titan liked numbers, then a prison full of villains was a number too, a number that could become a tool. That night, deep underground, Titan listened to a message, not on a normal device. Ma had built a translator from stolen parts, and the energy residue left by the sky tear. It was not perfect, but it worked. A voice came through, smooth and pleased, like a man smiling in a dark room. "You are efficient," the voice said. "I admire that." Titan's face did not change. "You are the thief," he replied. A soft chuckle. "Some call me that. Some call me a king. Names are flexible." Titan's eyes narrowed. "State your purpose." "My purpose is simple," the voice said. "I want to survive the world you intend to build, and I want to profit from it." Ma's smile widened as if he loved the honesty. Titan stayed calm. "You believe you can bargain?" "I can," the voice said, "because I know this world. I know its cracks, and I know what you are hunting." Titan's gaze sharpened. "Speak." The voice purred. "One for all." Titan's fingers tightened slightly on the table. "Who carries it?" The voice laughed again. "Ah, that would be telling you for free." Titan's eyes went cold. Ma leaned in, whispering like a proud advisor. "My lord, he thinks himself clever." Titan spoke into the device, voice even. "You will tell me." "And what will I receive?" the voice asked. Titan's reply was simple. "Time." Silence. Then the voice returned, still amused, but cautious now. "You truly are something new. Very well. I will not give you the name. Not yet. But I will tell you this. Your key is close to UA High." Titan's eyes narrowed. The voice continued. "And your other key is me." The message cut. Ma's smile faded. "He dares." Titan stared at the silent device. "He is afraid," Titan said. Ma tilted his head. "Of you?" Titan's eyes stayed steady. "Of being irrelevant?" He looked at the maps again, at UA, marked in bright lines. "Prepare," Titan said. Ma's smile returned. At last. Titan's voice stayed calm, but it carried weight. "The next move will be personal." And far above, in classrooms full of children trying to be brave, the air felt colder without anyone knowing why. A week after the second attack, the world tried to pretend it was stable again. Shops reopened fully. Trains ran on schedule. People went back to smiling in public, because smiling was easier than breaking. Titan did not return to the coast. He did not strike another research building. That scared the heroes more than a loud attack would have, because silence meant planning. In a rural town far from the city, a farmer named Kenta was fixing a broken fence when a shadow crossed his field. He looked up, squinting. A tall figure stood at the edge of the road, alone. Purple skin, heavy armor. No mask, no fear. Kenta's mouth went dry. "Hey!" he shouted before he knew why. "You can't just—" The figure walked closer. Kenta's legs wanted to run, but his daughter was in the house behind him. His wife was inside making lunch. He couldn't run. The figure stopped a few meters away and looked at the farm like he was inspecting it. Then he spoke in a calm voice that did not match the fear in Kenta's chest. "Who governs this region?" the figure asked. Kenta blinked. "What?" "Who keeps records?" the figure continued. "Of food output, water access, and population count?" Kenta stared at him like he was insane. "You're that." "Titan," Kenta managed. Titan did not react to the name. He just waited, patient as stone. Kenta swallowed. "Town office," he said, voice shaking. "They have records. Why would you want that?" Titan's eyes moved to the small house, then to the fence, then to the man's hands. Because your world survives on weak lines, Titan said. And weak lines break. Kenta's throat tightened. Are you going to kill us? Titan's voice stayed calm. Not today. That answer did not comfort Kenta at all. Titan turned and walked down the road toward the town office like he had an appointment. Kenta stood frozen until the figure was far enough away that his legs worked again. He ran inside and grabbed his phone with shaking hands. "Hero Hotline?" he shouted to his wife. "Call them! Now!" In the town office, the clerk behind the counter looked up from her paperwork and blinked hard. The tall invader stood in the doorway like a statue that had learned how to walk. He approached the counter and placed a hero handbook down gently, like a complaint form. The clerk stared at it, confused. Titan spoke like he was trying to be polite. "I require your ledgers." The clerk's lips parted. "Our what?" "Your population records," Titan said. "Your food stores, your water access, your medical capacity." The clerk's face went pale. We don't just give that to..." Titan's eyes narrowed slightly. "I am not asking," he said. The clerk's hands shook. She reached under the counter for the emergency button. Before she could press it, a paperclip lifted off her desk and floated in the air. Her eyes went wide. Ebony Maw drifted into the doorway behind Titan, smiling softly. "Please," Maw said, voice smooth. "We will do this the easy way." The clerk swallowed and slowly pulled out a binder with trembling hands. Titan opened it and began reading. He frowned after a moment. "These titles," he muttered, pointing. "Mayor, deputy, council." He flipped a page. "Your system is inconsistent." The clerk blinked. Even terrified, she couldn't help it. It's a small town." Titan looked up, serious. "That is not an excuse." Maw's smile twitched as if he found it funny. The clerk stared at the giant invader lecturing her about organization, and her brain nearly broke. Outside, sirens finally sounded in the distance. Heroes were coming. Keigo Takami, Hawks, arrived first because he always tried to arrive first. He landed on the roof of the town office, feathers spread for balance, eyes scanning. He felt something in the air that did not belong. A pressure, a quiet confidence. He heard a faint voice inside. "Your ledgers," a calm voice said. Hawks's eyes narrowed. "You've got to be kidding me." He slipped through a broken skylight without making a sound. Inside, Titan stood at the counter, reading. Maw hovered beside him, flipping pages without touching them. The clerk sat rigid, eyes wet, hands clasped like prayer. Hawks drew in a slow breath. He had a mission. Get eyes on Titan. Learn. Delay. Protect civilians. He also had a normal human reaction. Run. Hawks stepped forward anyway. "Hey," Hawks said, voice light, like he was greeting a problem he could handle. "Town records? That's your big villain hobby?" Titan's gaze shifted to Hawks, steady and assessing. "A ranked hero," Titan said. Hawks forced a smile. "Yeah, that's kind of our thing." Titan's eyes moved over Hawks's wings. "You're fast," he said. "Useful." Hawks's smile tightened. "I'm not applying for a job." Maw chuckled softly. Such pride for such a fragile creature. Hawks's feathers tensed, ready to strike, ready to grab the binder, ready to pull civilians out. But Titan didn't lunge. He simply asked, "Where is the one who carries the moving power?" Hawks's blood went cold. He kept his face smooth. "Moving power?" Titan's eyes stayed on him. "A power that transfers. A power that gathers." Hawks's mind flashed to rumors, to history, to all might, to things he had been warned not to say out loud. He played dumb. Lots of quirks are weird. Titan took one step closer. Hawks felt it. the difference between a conversation and a threat. Titan's voice stayed calm. "Do not waste time." Hawks's feathers slid an inch forward, like knives hidden under a smile. Then the window behind Hawks shattered. A burst of ice and fire crashed into the room together. Shoto Todoroki landed in a half-crouch, eyes sharp, one side steaming, the other cold. Behind him, Katsuki Bakugo slammed through the opening like a cannonball, explosions popping around his hands. "Found you!" Bakugo snarled, eyes wild with anger. "You big freak," Hawks exhaled through his nose. "Great timing. Terrible volume." Titan looked at the students, and for the first time, something like surprise flickered in his eyes. Not fear, interest. "You send children," Titan said, voice flat. Bakugo's grin was sharp. "I'm not a child," Todoroki's voice was calm. "We're here to evacuate civilians and stop you." Titan's gaze moved to Todoroki's fire and ice. "Powerful," he observed. Ma's smile widened. "My lord, this world is full of gifts." Titan's eyes returned to Hawks. "You hide your keys behind youth," Titan said. "Cowardly." Hawks's voice stayed light, but his eyes were hard. "We hide them behind courage." Bakugo didn't wait. He blasted forward, explosion pushing him like a rocket. He aimed for Titan's face, full force, because Bakugo didn't know any other setting. Titan raised one arm. Bakugo's punch hit Titan's forearm and stopped dead, like hitting a wall. Bakugo's eyes widened for half a second. Then Titan's other hand snapped out and grabbed Bakugo by the collar. Titan did not slam him. He did not crush him. He simply held him in the air, letting Bakugo kick and struggle like a trapped animal. "Loud," Titan said. Bakugo snarled. "Let go!" Todoroki moved instantly. Ice surging up from the floor in thick spikes aimed to lock Titan's legs. Titan stepped back once, and the ice still rose, catching his boot. It cracked under his weight, but it slowed him for a heartbeat. Hawks used that heartbeat. His feathers shot out, not to cut Titan, but to wrap around Bakugo's waist and yank him away from Titan's grip. Bakugo hit the floor, rolled, and sprang up again, furious. Todoroki's fire burst to life, a controlled blast meant to push Titan back without melting the whole building. Ma raised a hand. The fire bent sideways, as if the air itself had grabbed it. It slammed into a wall instead, blasting plaster and smoke into the room. The clerk screamed. Hawks's eyes flashed. "Civilians! Out!" Feathers swept around the clerk like a shield and guided her toward the back door. Outside, sirens grew louder. More heroes were close. Titan watched the chaos with calm focus. Then, over the noise, a new sound rose. A ripping sound, like the sky tearing again. Hawks's head snapped up. "No," he whispered. The air above the town office split open. Not wide, just enough. More shapes dropped through. Not the Black Order. Different. Warp fog. Dark mist. A gate. Hawks felt his stomach drop again. "Villains." Bakugo yelled, "What is that?" Todoroki's eyes narrowed. A portal. From the mist, figures stepped out. Men and women in street clothes, masks, and ragged coats. And at the center, a pale young man with messy hair and a hand-like shape clinging to his face. Tamura Shigaraki. His fingers twitched, like he was itching to touch the world, until it died. Shigaraki's eyes locked onto Titan. He smiled in a way that made Hawks want to throw up. "So that's you," Shigaraki said. "The thing everybody's scared of." Titan's gaze moved to Shigaraki, assessing. "A parasite," Titan said. Shigaraki laughed, harsh. "Wow, you talk like you own the place." Ma floated slightly higher, amused. "He does compared to you." Shigaraki's smile widened. "I don't care what you think." His eyes slid to Ma, to Titan's armor. to the strange tech pieces at Ma's waist. "I want your toys," Shigaraki said simply, "and I want your power." Hawks's mind raced. Three-way fight, in a small town, civilians nearby. This was a nightmare. Bakugo looked like he was about to explode from excitement and anger. Todoroki's face stayed calm, but his eyes tightened with focus. Titan did not look worried. He looked mildly annoyed. "You interrupt my work," Titan said. Shigaraki spread his arms, mock welcome. "Yeah, welcome to my world." Shigaraki lunged. He moved fast, hands reaching, decay ready. Titan stepped back once, not rushed. Shigaraki's fingers scraped Titan's armor. Nothing happened. Shigaraki froze for a fraction of a second, shocked. Titan's hand snapped out and grabbed Shigaraki's wrist. Shigaraki's eyes widened. Titan squeezed. Not hard, enough to break it instantly. Hard enough to make Shigaraki feel pain. "You think destruction is power," Titan said, voice calm. "It is only hunger." Shigaraki snarled and tried to pull free. From behind him, the League's fighters surged forward. Hawks shot feathers into the air, creating a barrier line between civilians and the clash. "Todoroki," Hawks shouted. "Freeze the street! Keep them away from houses!" Todoroki slammed his foot down. Ice spread like a fast-growing wall across the road, blocking escape routes and cutting off the villain's path toward homes. Bakugo blasted upward, aiming for Shigaraki's support, because Bakugo always tried to break the group. Proxima Midnight appeared at Titan's side like a blade, spear whipping toward Shigaraki's neck. Shigaraki jerked back, barely avoiding it. He hissed, "Who are you?" Proxima's eyes were cold. "Your betters." Bakugo's explosion hit near Proxima, forcing her to slide back. Proxima twisted, in mid-step, spear spinning, and swung at Bakugo with perfect timing. Bakugo dodged with a blast, the spear tip slicing air where his head had been. His grin widened. Finally, somebody who can fight. Ma lifted one hand and pulled. Bakugo felt his body tug sideways, like an invisible rope had hooked his chest. He slammed into a wall hard enough to crack it. Bakugo's eyes flashed with rage. "Hey!" Todoroki fired a burst of ice at Ma, not to hurt him, but to trap his line of sight. Ma's fingers flexed. The ice stopped mid-air, then shattered into glittering dust. Ma smiled at Todoroki like a teacher praising effort. Clever. Hawks's feathers snapped forward toward Ma's face. Ma's eyes flicked, and the feathers froze again. "Predictable," Ma said, almost cheerful. Hawks gritted his teeth. He changed tactics. He sent feathers behind Ma, toward the ceiling beams, then pulled. The beams groaned and began to collapse toward Ma's blind side. Ma's smile faded slightly. He turned his head just in time to raise a pressure wall. The beams slammed into it and shattered. Hawks's heart pounded. Good. Ma had to react. That meant Ma wasn't untouchable, just very, very hard to handle. In the middle of it, Titan still held Shigaraki by the wrist. Shigaraki's fingers scratched at Titan's grip, trying to touch skin. Titan didn't let him. "Your decay spreads by contact," Titan said, voice calm. "So you crave touch." Shigaraki's eyes burned. "Shut up!" Titan's other hand rose. Shigaraki flinched, expecting a punch. Instead, Titan slammed Shigaraki down into the office floor. The floor cracked. Dust burst up. Shigaraki coughed, eyes wide, anger shaking his whole body. Titan stepped on Shigaraki's forearm, pinning it. "Leave," Titan said, "or be removed." Shigaraki's face twisted in hate. "Removed? You think you can—" A new voice cut in, low and dangerous. "Tamura." A taller figure stepped through, the warp mist, lab coat fluttering. "Dr. Garaki." Hawks's eyes narrowed. "No." Garaki's gaze went to Titan, hungry and sharp. Fascinating, he muttered. So much biology. So much. Titan looked at him like he was dirt. Another parasite, Garaki smiled. A scientist, actually. Titan's eyes flicked to the warp gate behind them. Ah, Titan said. This is how you move. He raised his hand toward the mist. Ma's eyes widened slightly. My lord. Titan's fingers curled. The air around the warp gate shivered. The mist trembled, like someone had grabbed the edge of the door. Shigaraki's eyes widened in panic. Don't touch that, Titan pulled. The warp gate wobbled, distorted, and began to collapse unevenly. Shigaraki screamed, Kurogiri, hold it! But Kurogiri was not here. This gate was being forced open by tech and quirks, not by a stable master. Titan's raw strength and Ma's control pressed on it like a weight. The gate started to tear itself apart. Hawks's heart jumped. If that gate collapsed wrong, it could swallow part of the building. It could swallow civilians. Stop, Hawks shouted, rare fear in his voice. Titan glanced at Hawks, calm. Your concern is predictable, Hawks snapped. It's called not killing people. Titan's eyes held Hawks's for one beat. Then Titan released the gate. The mist stabilized, barely, wobbling like a shaky door. Hawks exhaled hard. He hated it, but he also saw it. Titan had listened, not because Hawks deserved it, because Titan did not want wasted chaos. Shigaraki used the moment. He slammed his free hand onto the cracked floor. Decay spread outward in a sharp line, not toward Titan's armor, toward the building supports. The office began to crumble. Todoroki's eyes widened. He's trying to bring the building down. Bakugo blasted upward, yelling, I'll blow it apart before it falls on people. Hawks shouted, No, civilians! Hawks's feathers shot into the air and formed a net under the ceiling, trying to catch falling beams. Todoroki threw a wave of ice across the crumbling floor, freezing the cracks in place, slowing the collapse. Shigaraki laughed through dust. If you want to save them, you can't fight me. Titan looked around at the shaking walls and falling plaster. He did not look panicked. He looked irritated. This is why your world fails, Titan said. Your enemies would rather burn the ground than build anything. He reached down, grabbed Shigaraki by the collar, and lifted him out of the spreading decay line. Shigaraki kicked and snarled, but he couldn't touch Titan's skin. Titan carried Shigaraki toward the warp gate, like Shigaraki was trash being taken out. Shigaraki's eyes widened. Wait! Titan threw him. Shigaraki flew through the mist and vanished. The League scrambled after him, retreating fast, because even Shigaraki knew when to run. Garaki's eyes stayed on Titan as he backed into the gate last. We will meet again, he said, voice delighted. Titan didn't reply. The gate collapsed behind them. The building groaned, half ruined. Hawks's feathers strained. Todoroki's ice creaked. Bakugo blasted debris away from the clerk and the town workers still hiding behind desks. Then the sound of heavy boots moved through the dust. Titan stepped toward the front door, holding the binder and the stolen ledgers like they were important. Hawks landed between Titan and the exit, chest rising and falling. You got your paperwork, Hawks said, voice tight. Now leave. Titan looked at Hawks, calm. You still have not answered my question. Hawks swallowed. Not happening. Titan's gaze slid past Hawks to the street outside, where more heroes were arriving. Sir Night-Eye wasn't here. Best Genist wasn't here. But plenty of pros were. Titan didn't look threatened. He looked like a man seeing more numbers. Very well, Titan said. He turned slightly, as if speaking to the air itself. This world is afraid, he said, and fear makes it honest. Hawks's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Titan looked down at Hawks, and his voice lowered. It means the keys will reveal themselves, Titan said, because your people will beg for solutions. Then he stepped outside. The sky tore open above the street. A smaller tear. Precise. Titan walked under it, ledgers in hand. Maw drifting after him like a shadow. Proxima and Corvus followed with discipline. Cull Obsidian stepped in last, glaring at the heroes like they were insects. The tier closed. The street went quiet except for the crackle of ice melting and the distant crying of frightened townspeople. Hawks stood still, feathers slowly settling back to his wings. Bakugo paced like a caged animal. He just left. Todoroki's breathing was steady, but his eyes were tense. He didn't come here to fight us. Hawks looked at the broken office, the frozen cracks, and the empty sky. No, Hawks said. He came to understand where we break. Back at UA, Nezu watched the report from the rural town with quiet focus. Aizawa stood beside him, arms crossed, face tired. They're moving outside the cities now, Aizawa said. Nezu nodded. He's doing what he does best. What's that? Aizawa asked. Nezu's smile was small. Auditing a world. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. He's measuring how we live, so he can decide how we should live. Nezu's eyes flicked to another report. A black market spike, villains moving faster, Commission pushing tighter rules. Aizawa's jaw tightened. The Commission is going to use this as an excuse. Nezu's voice stayed gentle. They already are. Aizawa stared at the screen, and Titan asked about a moving power. Nezu's smile faded a fraction. Yes. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. So he knows. Nezu didn't deny it. Aizawa felt his stomach twist. Then he will come here. Nezu's eyes were bright and serious now. Yes. Aizawa exhaled slowly. Great. Nezu's paw tapped the desk lightly. We will not panic. Aizawa's voice was flat. We will plan. Nezu nodded. We will plan. But even plans had limits when the enemy treated the world like a spreadsheet. Titan stood in his hidden base again, ledgers open, charts projected in the air by Maw's control. He compared food routes, water systems, medical reach. He mapped where heroes arrived fast and where they arrived late. He mapped where villains appeared most often. He mapped where the system was strongest and where it was brittle. Maw hovered beside him, pleased. My lord, their society is built on fragile trust. Titan's eyes stayed on the data. Trust is not fragile. It is valuable. Maw's smile thinned. And valuable things can be taken. Titan did not respond to that. He opened a new file that Maw had built from overheard broadcasts and stolen records. A school? UA High. A list of students' quirks, training schedules. Titan's gaze paused on one name. Midoriya Izuku. Maw leaned closer, reading. A child. Titan's eyes sharpened. A vessel. Maw's smile widened. So, the rumor is true. Titan looked at another name. All Might, linked to One for All. Then another. All for One, linked to quirk theft. Titan closed his eyes for a brief moment, as if making a decision that had been forming for days. This world has 2 keystones, he said softly. Maw's voice was eager. And you will take them? Titan opened his eyes. His calm returned like armor. Yes, Titan said, but not with noise. He looked at the hero handbook again, still sitting on the table from the beach. Bright colors, smiling faces, big slogans. Titan's mouth tightened. They call themselves heroes. They wear names like costumes. Maw chuckled. One of them is called Deku. Titan's eyes narrowed, almost offended. That is not a name, he said. Maw smiled wider, yet the world cheers for it. Titan stared at the student file again. Midoriya Izuku, a child learning to be a symbol, a child carrying a power that could change everything. Titan's voice stayed calm, but it carried a cold promise. "Prepare a quiet strike," Titan said. "I want the vessel alive." Ma bowed slightly. "As you command." Titan turned away from the charts and looked toward the dark ceiling of the base, like he could see through stone and sky. "This world will learn," he said, "that balance is not a vote." And somewhere far above, a boy with green hair kept training, not knowing his name was now on a Titan's list. The week after the rural town attack felt longer than a month. People still went to work. Kids still went to school. Trains still ran. But the whole country moved like it was holding its breath. At UA, the routine changed without anyone saying the word changed. There were more drills, but they were quiet. No cheers, no jokes, no flashy poses for cameras. Teachers made students practice one thing again and again. Move civilians first. Cover exits. Protect each other. Izuku Midoriya ran the training field until his legs shook. Then he ran more. He told himself it was for everyone. He told himself he was not scared. But the truth sat in his chest like a stone. Titan had asked about a moving power. Titan had looked straight through Hawks like he was reading a map. And now, every time Deku heard a distant siren, he wondered if it was coming for him. Aizawa kept him closer to the teacher building, not like a cage, more like a shield. "Stay in sight," Aizawa told him. "Not because you're weak, because you matter." Deku nodded, throat tight. He hated being a target. He hated even more that people could get hurt because of him. Keigo Hawks Takami sat on the edge of a rooftop with a coffee he hadn't tasted once. Down below, a commission convoy moved through the streets with black vans and police escorts. The commission had started doing it more often. Moving resources, moving prisoners, moving important people. They called it stability. Hawks called it bait. He had argued with them twice this week, and it had gone nowhere. "Curfews reduce chaos," the commission woman had said. "Curfews trap civilians," Hawks had replied. "Surveillance prevents panic," she had said. "Surveillance makes people feel hunted," Hawks had replied. They smiled at him, and then they did what they wanted anyway. Now, Hawks watched cameras turn on at street corners that didn't have cameras before. He watched drones fly routes that didn't match weather checks. He watched hero agencies get new guidelines that sounded more like orders. And every time the commission tightened its grip, Hawks thought of Titan's calm voice in the town office. "Fear makes it honest." Hawks rubbed his face with one hand. "Yeah," he muttered, "and fear also makes it stupid." His phone buzzed with a secure alert from Nezu's channel. Single line. Possible strike window soon. Prepare UA net. Hawks's feathers lifted slightly on his back, like his body had moved before his mind. "Finally," he whispered, even though he didn't feel relief at all. Because if the strike was coming, it was coming for the key. And if Titan wanted Midoriya, then this wasn't just a battle. It was a kidnapping attempt on the future. Enji Todoroki stood in the mirror of his agency office and stared at his own eyes. His bruises were mostly gone. His shoulder still ached. His pride still burned. He had given the commission statement. He had said the words they wanted. He had promised strength and unity. People had cheered for the sound of it. Then the fear came back anyway. Endeavor's fingers tightened around the edge of the sink. He had been number. One for a short time, and the world had already found a new kind of terror. He didn't want to be a symbol. He wanted to be a wall. Walls didn't get to be tired. His phone rang, a private line. Endeavor answered without looking at the screen. "Speak." Nezu's voice came through, calm as always. "Endeavor, we may need you at UA." Endeavor's eyes narrowed. "Is he coming?" "We believe so," Nezu said. "We believe the target is a student." Endeavor's jaw tightened so hard it hurt. "Midoriya." Nezu didn't confirm, but he didn't need to. Endeavor felt something twist in his chest. He had spent years chasing his own dream through a child's life. He had broken his family with it. Now, another monster was hunting a child like a prize. Endeavor's voice came out low. "He won't touch the boy." Nezu paused for half a beat. "That is what we intend." Endeavor grabbed his coat. "I'm on my way." When he stepped out of his office, his sidekicks looked up fast. "Boss?" one asked. Endeavor's flames flickered once, then steadied. "Full response," he said. "No cameras, no speeches, just protection." They stared for a moment, surprised. Then they moved. Deep underground, Titan stood in front of an open hero handbook and a projected class schedule. Ebony Maw hovered beside him, fingers moving as the air filled with maps and paths. "UA High," Maw said softly. "A fortress disguised as a school." Titan's eyes scanned the lines. Training fields, dorm buildings, teacher wing, tunnels. He stared at the words, "Hero Course," for a long moment. "A strange civilization," Titan said. "They train children to become weapons, then call it hope." Maw smiled, pleased. "Hope is easy to shape." Titan's gaze narrowed. "No, hope is stubborn." Maw's smile faltered slightly. Proxima Midnight stepped forward. "We strike tonight?" Titan looked at the map again. "Not for the building," he said. "For the vessel." Maw tilted his head. "Midoriya Izuku." Titan's mouth tightened at the name. "And they call him Deku." Maw gave a small laugh. "Yes." Titan's eyes hardened, almost offended. "That is not a name," he said again. Corvus Glaive's voice was cold. "Names don't matter." "They matter to them," Titan replied. "That is why it is weak." Maw leaned closer, voice smooth. "We will take him alive, as you commanded." Titan didn't move. "If he carries a transferable power, I want proof. I want a sample." Maw nodded. A drop of blood, a strand of hair, something measurable. Titan's gaze stayed on the map. "Do not waste time fighting their strongest. If they stand in the way, move them. If they refuse to move, break them." Cull Obsidian grunted like he liked that. Titan's eyes lifted slightly, like he was listening to something beyond the room. "The thief will try again," Titan said. Maw's smile returned. "Let him." Titan's voice stayed calm. "If he offers me control, it is because he fears losing his own." Maw clasped his hands. "And if he offers you the boy?" Titan's eyes went cold. "Then he offers me a reason to remove him." In a hidden chamber full of humming machines, a man sat in darkness with a smile that didn't belong on any human face. All for One listened to his followers report the rural clash. He heard how Titan had held Shigaraki down. He heard how Titan had almost torn the warp gate apart with bare strength and control. And instead of fear, All for One felt something like excitement. "A new predator," he murmured. Dr. Garaki leaned in, eyes bright. "It is fascinating. His body alone." All for One lifted a hand. "Lauder. First, we speak to him." Garaki hesitated. "He's not like the others." All for One's smile widened. "Then I will speak carefully." A device crackled, a frequency tuned to something not of this world. All for One's voice slid into the channel like oil. "Titan," he said warmly, "we should talk. You and I." A pause, then a calm voice answered. "I know you," Titan said. "You are the thief." All for One chuckled. "A harsh word. I prefer collector." "State your purpose," Titan replied. All for One leaned back, relaxed. "Information. You want the vessel. I can give you the path to him." Silence. All for One's smile sharpened. "And in return, you allow me to keep my work. You build your balanced world, and I thrive within it." Titan's reply came without heat. "No, All for One blinked once, not used to it. You refuse? All for One asked, still smiling. I do not share control, Titan said. All for One's smile thinned. Then you will make an enemy you don't need. Titan's voice stayed calm. You are already an enemy. You harm this world for pleasure. All for One's fingers tightened slightly on his chair. Titan continued, almost like he was explaining something basic. You offered the boy to save yourself. All for One's smile returned, but it was colder now. The boy will break anyway. He is young. He is stubborn, Titan said. All for One's eyes narrowed. Who are you, truly? Not Titan. The name. A pause. Then Titan spoke with quiet certainty. My name is Thanos. All for One's smile froze for half a heartbeat. That name meant nothing to this world, but it meant something to the way Thanos spoke, like a king introducing himself before a judgment. The channel crackled. All for One recovered fast. Thanos? He repeated, tasting it. Very well. Thanos' voice dropped, heavy. If you come near the vessel, I will remove you. All for One's smile returned, controlled. We shall see. The channel cut. Garaki leaned in, nervous now. You antagonized him. All for One stared into the dark and smiled wider. No, he said softly. I learned his name. At UA, the night air was cold and clear. Izuku Midoriya sat on his bed in the dorms with his boots on, like he didn't trust sleep. His classmates tried to act normal in the common room. Someone turned on a comedy show. Someone laughed too loud. Kirishima asked Bakugo if he wanted tea. Bakugo barked. No, like the word could punch fear in the face. Todoroki sat quietly, phone in hand, reading emergency updates that were probably not meant for students. Deku stood and walked out to the hallway. He couldn't breathe right in a room full of forced normal. He stepped into the dorm lobby and found Aizawa leaning against the wall near the entrance, arms crossed, eyes half-lidded. Aizawa didn't look up. Can't sleep? Deku's throat tightened. No. Aizawa's voice stayed flat. Good. Stay awake. Fear makes you alert. Don't let it make you stupid. Deku swallowed. Do you think he's coming here? Aizawa opened one eye fully and looked at him. Yes, he said. No, comfort. No lie. Deku's hands clenched. I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. Aizawa's gaze stayed steady. People will get hurt because villains choose to hurt them. That's on the villains. Your job is to reduce damage. Deku blinked hard. What if he takes me? Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Then we stop him. Deku's voice shook. How? Aizawa cut him off. We don't stop him with pride. We stop him with planning. He looked toward the dark training fields outside. Nezu built a trap. You stay in the center of it. You do not run off alone. Deku nodded fast. I won't. Aizawa's gaze softened by a fraction. And Midoriya. Deku looked up. Aizawa's voice lowered. If he talks to you, don't let him crawl into your head. Deku swallowed. He will try? Aizawa's mouth tightened. That type always does. The sky tore open above UA like a wound. No warning siren sounded first. The warning was the sound itself. A rip that made the air vibrate. Lights flared across the campus as the defense system snapped awake. Barriers rose, doors sealed, walls shifted. Nezu's trap began moving like a living maze. Thanos stepped through the tear and landed on the main training field with a quiet thud. Ebony Maw floated beside him. The Black Order fanned out. Cull Obsidian cracked his neck. Proxima and Corvus took positions like trained blades. Thanos looked around at the school grounds. A fortress, he said. Maw smiled. A clever one. Thanos' eyes narrowed. Clever does not mean wise. A shadow moved on the far side of the field. Endeavor landed with fire boiling around him, flanked by pro-heroes at a distance. Hawks hovered above like a red streak in the dark. Aizawa stood at ground level, capture scarf loose, eyes already straining. And at the center, behind a reinforced line and inside a ring of moving walls, Deku stood with his fists up, breathing hard. Thanos' gaze locked onto him. "There," Thanos said softly. Deku felt his stomach drop. He had never been looked at like that. Not like a student, like a container. Thanos stepped forward. The ground under his boots didn't crack. He didn't need to show off. Aizawa's voice snapped through a speaker. "Stop!" Thanos paused and glanced toward the sound. Aizawa's eyes were wide, unblinking. Thanos felt the pressure of that gaze and smiled faintly. "You remove gifts," Thanos said again, like remembering a tool. Aizawa didn't reply. His scarf flicked out, aiming for Thanos' arm. Thanos caught the scarf with one hand and pulled. Aizawa braced, feet sliding. Hawks dropped lower and sent feathers toward the scarf line, trying to cut it free from Thanos' grip. Ma lifted a finger. The feathers froze. Hawks clicked his tongue. Of course. Todoroki's ice surged from hidden vents under the ground. It shot up in thick blocks, aiming to lock Thanos' feet. Thanos stepped once, and the ice cracked under his weight. Still, it slowed him for a beat. That beat mattered, because Nezu's trap used beats. A section of the ground shifted. Walls rose between Thanos and Deku like sliding doors. Thanos stopped, looking at the sudden barrier. Ma's smile widened. A maze. Endeavor's flames roared. "Back away from the school!" Thanos didn't look at him. He looked at the wall, then at Ma. "Open it," Thanos said. Ma lifted both hands. The wall groaned as invisible force pressed it from both sides. Then something else happened. Aizawa's gaze snapped to Ma. Ma's telekinesis didn't vanish, but it wobbled, like a hand losing fine control. Ma's smile twitched. Annoying. Aizawa's eyes burned. He held that stare like his life depended on it, because everyone else's lives did. Hawks darted sideways, fast, trying to get between Ma and Aizawa's line of sight. Corvus moved like a shadow and slashed at Hawks midair. Hawks twisted, barely avoiding the blade. A feather snapped off and fluttered down. Hawks's face tightened. "Okay, that's personal." Bakugo blasted into the field from the side, yelling like he wanted the sky to hear him. "Hey, Big Purple!" He fired a chain of explosions at Proxima and Corvus, forcing them to scatter. Proxima spun her spear and deflected a blast with perfect timing. The shockwave still pushed her back. Bakugo grinned, fierce. "Good. You don't fall over." Finally. Todoroki slid into position near the moving wall line. Ice spread in a wide sheet, making the ground slick for anyone trying to rush the center. Deku stayed inside the maze ring, eyes wide, body shaking with held power. He wanted to run forward. He wanted to punch Thanos. But he remembered Aizawa's rule. "Don't be stupid." Thanos stepped toward the barrier again and placed a palm on it. Endeavor blasted him. Full heat, a focused beam meant to force distance. Thanos turned slightly and raised one arm. The beam, hit his armor and rolled off, scorching the ground beside him. Thanos' eyes moved to Endeavor at last. "You again," Thanos said. Endeavor snarled. "This time, you don't walk past me." Thanos' voice stayed calm. "You are still trapped by your role." Endeavor charged anyway. This time, he didn't go alone. Hawks dove in with him, feathers striking at Thanos' joints, aiming to distract and blind. Todoroki sent ice spikes to control Thanos' footwork. Bakugo hit from above with a heavy blast to force Thanos' head down. It was teamwork. It was everything they could do right. Thanos still moved through it like a storm, moving through paper walls. He caught Hawks' feathers in his hand and crushed them into a clump, not out of hate, but because they were in the way. He stepped through Todoroki's ice, cracking it with each calm step. He took Bakugo's strongest blast and slid one foot back, then stopped. Bakugo stared for a split second. Thanos' hand snapped out and grabbed Bakugo by the face. Bakugo's eyes went wide, rage exploding. Thanos didn't squeeze hard enough to kill. He threw Bakugo across the field. Bakugo slammed into a barrier wall and dropped, coughing, then immediately tried to stand again. "Again!" Bakugo snarled, even with blood at his lip. Thanos' gaze returned to the center maze. "Enough," he said. He stopped playing the outer fight. He walked straight toward the moving walls, toward Deku. Nezu's trap reacted, sliding panels, shifting corridors, trying to keep the distance. Thanos placed his hands on a wall seam and pulled. Metal screamed. The wall bent. Ma's eyes gleamed. Yes. Aizawa's stare snapped to Thanos' face. It didn't stop his raw strength, but it bought one more moment of hesitation in Ma, one more wobble in the precise support. Hawks, panting, realized the truth and shouted it into his comm. Aizawa can't shut them down, but he can disturb Ma's control. Keep Ma busy. Endeavor launched himself toward Ma instead of Thanos, flames boiling. Ma smiled calmly and raised a hand. Endeavor felt his body seize midair, like invisible chains grabbed his ribs. He growled and forced a flame burst, using the blast to twist his body and break the angle. He slammed to the ground instead of floating helplessly. Pain flashed in his eyes, but he was still standing. Endeavor looked up at Ma with a hard, ugly respect. "So you're the one," Endeavor hissed. Ma's smile stayed. "You're loud." Endeavor attacked Ma with short, controlled bursts, forcing Ma to keep adjusting instead of focusing fully on the maze walls. Todoroki joined, sending ice and steam to block Ma's vision. Hawks darted in and out, cutting angles, making Ma constantly turn his head. Aizawa's eyes stayed locked as long as he could, tears forming from strain. Inside the maze ring, Deku felt the walls shift around him. Nezu's voice came through a small earpiece in Deku's ear. Calm, direct. "Midoriya, stay centered. Do not chase. Do not rage." Deku swallowed. "He's coming." "Yes," Nezu said. "So we will make him pay for every step." Deku's breath shook. "What do I do?" Nezu's voice didn't change. "You do what you do best. You save and you endure." A shadow fell across the corridor opening. Thanos stepped into view, having torn through one barrier section with brute force and timing. Deku stared at him and felt small. Thanos didn't rush. He walked like he had already won. "You carry it," Thanos said, voice calm. Deku's mouth was dry. "Carry what?" Thanos' eyes narrowed. "Do not pretend." Deku's fists tightened. "I don't know who you are, but you're hurting people." Thanos tilted his head slightly, studying Deku like a problem. "I will stop suffering," Thanos said. Deku's heart pounded. "By doing what?" "By balancing," Thanos replied, like it was obvious. "Your world is unstable. Too much power, too much chaos, too many mouths, too many lies." Deku's voice shook with anger now. "People aren't numbers." Thanos stepped closer. "Numbers are truth," he said. "Your feelings do not change reality." Deku's eyes burned. "My feelings are why I save people." Thanos paused for a beat, then spoke like he was offering a gift. "Give me the power," Thanos said, "and I will end your war. I will end your villains. I will end your fear." Deku's breath caught. It sounded like peace. It sounded like the thing people prayed for, and it sounded wrong. Deku thought of All Might, thin but still standing. He thought of Aizawa, eyes burning, still fighting for students. He thought of Bakugo getting thrown and still getting up. He thought of people smiling in the street because heroes made it possible. Deku shook his head. "You don't get to buy peace with lives," he said. Thanos' eyes hardened. "Then you choose suffering." Deku's voice became steadier. "No, I choose fighting for everyone, even if it's hard." Thanos stared at him, calm turning colder. "Stubborn," he said. As expected. Thanos moved, fast. Deku reacted on instinct, one for all surging through him. He slid back, arms up, absorbing the impact of Thanos' first strike. The hit still felt like a truck. Deku's feet dug into the ground. Cracks spread under his shoes. Pain flashed up his arms. But he didn't break. He had trained for this feeling. Not Thanos specifically, but the feeling of a wall you had to hold. Deku punched back, not wild, not screaming. A controlled smash aimed at Thanos' chest. Thanos took it and moved one step back. Just one. Deku's eyes widened. Thanos' gaze sharpened. There it is. Thanos' hand snapped out, not to grab Deku's head, but to strike Deku's forearm. A sharp blow. Deku felt skin split. A single drop of blood rose on his arm. Thanos' fingers moved faster than Deku could follow. He caught the drop on the tip of a glove, like catching rain. Deku's stomach dropped. "What did you—" Thanos looked at the blood like it was an answer. "Proof," he said. The walls around them shuddered. Outside the maze, a blast hit the field. Bakugo had gotten back up and was now firing at Corvus again, keeping him from entering the maze path. Todoroki's ice surged, sealing a corridor behind Thanos, trying to trap him inside with Deku. Hawks screamed into comms, breath ragged. "He's in! Midoriya, stay alive!" Aizawa's vision blurred. He forced his eyes to stay open. Endeavor's flames flared as he slammed Ma into a wall with a burning shoulder check. Ma's smile cracked for the first time. "Brute!" he hissed. Endeavor growled. "Good!" Thanos looked up as if hearing all of it at once. He had what he came for. He didn't need the boy tonight. Not if he could measure the power first. Thanos stepped back from Deku. Deku tried to rush him. Nezu's voice snapped in Deku's ear. "No! Do not chase!" Deku stopped himself with effort that hurt more than the punch. Thanos raised his hand toward the ceiling. The air split. A tear opened above the maze corridor. Thanos looked at Deku one last time. "You will be tested again," Thanos said. "And next time, you will run out of walls." Deku's chest rose and fell hard. "We'll build more." For a moment, Thanos looked almost amused. Then he turned and walked into the tear. Ma followed, blood sample secured, eyes bright with satisfaction. Proxima and Corvus pulled back in perfect timing, retreating before heroes could surround them. Cull Obsidian left last, glaring as if promising he'd enjoy the next time more. The tier closed. The maze walls eased back into place with a heavy, tired sound. Silence fell across the field in broken pieces. Deku stood in the center corridor, shaking, staring at the spot where Thanos had been. Hawks landed nearby, breathing hard, feathers messy. "Kid," Hawks said, voice rough, "you okay?" Deku looked down at the small cut on his arm. "One drop," Deku whispered. Aizawa stumbled forward, eyes red and wet, jaw tight. He looked like he wanted to collapse but refused. "He got what he needed," Aizawa said. Endeavor stood a few meters away, flames low. His fists were clenched, but he didn't shout. He looked at Deku like he was seeing him clearly for the first time. Not a symbol. A child standing in front of a monster and not breaking. Bakugo limped to the edge of the maze, coughing, eyes furious. "He ran!" Bakugo spat. "He ran because we made him run." Hawks exhaled sharply. "Yeah," he said. "Sure. Tell yourself that." But Hawks's eyes stayed on the sky, because Thanos hadn't run like a loser. He'd left like a man who had finished a job, and that was worse. Morning came, even though it felt like it shouldn't. UA cleaned broken stone and scorched metal. Support staff repaired barriers. Teachers checked every student twice. In the dorm common room, someone finally made tea. It tasted like warm water and stress. Deku sat alone for a few minutes, with a bandage on his arm. He stared at the small stain of dried blood on the wrap. One drop. It was nothing. It was everything. All Might found him by the window, thin shoulders hunched slightly, eyes tired. He sat beside Deku without speaking at first. Deku's voice came out small. "He said his name." All Might's gaze sharpened. "He did?" Deku nodded. "Thanos." All Might's eyes narrowed as if searching memory that wasn't his. The name didn't belong to this world. That alone made it worse. Deku swallowed. "He offered to end suffering." All Might's jaw tightened. "And what did you say?" Deku's hands clenched. "I said people aren't numbers." All Might nodded slowly, a quiet pride that didn't need loud words. "Good." Deku's voice shook. "But he took my blood." "He took proof." All Might stared forward. "He will study it." Deku looked down. "So it's my fault again." All Might turned to him, eyes firm. "No." Deku blinked. All Might's voice stayed gentle but hard. "It is his fault. It is always the invader's fault for invading. Do not let him rewrite your thinking." Deku swallowed, eyes burning. All Might leaned back slightly. "You stood in front of him. You did not trade lives for comfort. That matters." Deku whispered, "What if that isn't enough?" All Might's gaze moved to the training field outside, where students were already doing rescue drills again. "It will have to become enough," All Might said quietly, "and you won't do it alone." In an office at the teacher building, Aizawa opened a drawer and pulled out a thin file folder. On the tab, one word was written in block letters. Titan. He stared at it for a long moment, then added a second word under it, with a pen that scratched hard. Thanos. Hio didn't like knowing the real name. Names made threats feel closer. He slid in new notes, observations, patterns, rules. Targets systems first. Avoids waste. Offers solutions. Wants keys. One for all for one. Aizawa's eyes burned again, not from erasure this time, from anger. He closed the folder and locked it away. Then he went back out to watch his students train. He stood in the sun with tired eyes and a straight back. A teacher guarding children from a god. In his agency, Endeavor watched a replay from a private angle that the commission didn't get. He watched himself fight Maw instead of chasing glory. He watched his flames act like a shield instead of a spotlight. He watched Midoriya stand in the corridor and not break. Endeavor's chest tightened. For years, he had believed power was the only answer. Now he saw something else. A boy choosing right when wrong looked easier. Endeavor turned the screen off. He didn't call reporters. He didn't call the commission. He called his family. The phone rang. A pause. Then a voice answered, cautious. Endeavor swallowed hard, and for once, his voice wasn't fire. "Are you safe?" he asked. Deep underground, Thanos stood in silence while Ebony Maw examined the sample. Maw moved with delicate care, as if the blood was a jewel. "The energy inside it," Maw murmured, thrilled. "It is layered. It is inherited." Thanos' eyes stayed calm. "Transferable," he said. Maw nodded. "Yes." Thanos turned slightly, looking at a projected list of hero names again. He stared at Deku and frowned. "A foolish title," he said. Maw smiled. "Yet it makes them love him." Thanos' gaze hardened. Love does not stop balance. Ma's voice lowered. What is the next step, my lord? Thanos looked at the sample, then at the map, then at the 2 keystones marked in his mind. The next step, he said calmly, is to remove the choice from them. He faced the dark ceiling, again, as if he could see the whole country through stone. Let them build walls, Thanos said. I will learn every wall. Ma bowed, smiling, and far above, the world kept moving. It just moved differently now, because everyone knew the truth they didn't want to say out loud. Thanos had arrived, and he wasn't done counting.